Welcome to 702 Unplugged.
And this afternoon, we feature an artist who has been described as on his way to achieving great acclaim. His name is Vuma Levin. Born in South Africa, he now does most of his work in Europe, in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. And he's home at the moment, and we thought, why not get him in studio? Good afternoon, Vuma. Great to have you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here.
Wow. So there's just so much to talk about. You first picked up the guitar at the age of 14.
Yeah, that's correct.
What led you there? Because you were taught by Johan Fourie, who's an acclaimed guitarist.
Yeah, I was only taught by Johnny Fourie much later when I was around 18 years of age. But before then, my brother brought home an acoustic guitar, and he was always a role model of mine. Mm-hmm. So whatever he did, I did as well. Usually not as well, but in this case, I think it's safe to say that I managed to surpass him. So my first role model was really my brother, who just sort of brought the instrument home and accompanied himself singing. And I did the same thing for a very, very long time.
Yes. And of course, you went through the usual process. You studied, you did a national diploma at Tshwane University of Technology. You've won awards, numerous awards, one in 2008 for Best Guitarist. And then you were selected as the Standard Bank National Youth Jazz Band as a guitarist for the band, led by the legendary Fea Faku. That must have been such a privilege to work with an artist of his caliber.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, I was hanging out with him in Sydney Mnisi the other night at the Orbit, and I was really telling him that gig was a sort of game changer for me.
Right.
The festival environment is a very international environment, and that gig, as well as my participation at the Grahamstown Jazz Festival, the Standard Bank Jazz Festival, convinced me that it would be wise to explore studies overseas and try and get mentorship on that side of the world.
Is that how you ended up at the prestigious conservatorium in Amsterdam?
Yeah, that was one of the motivating factors. The other is that they have probably the best jazz guitar department in Europe, and probably my favorite jazz guitarist in the world teaches there. His name is Jesse van Rula. And it was just a great privilege to be there and to be in that incredibly inspiring environment for both my bachelor's and my master's degree.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You have you have an album. We'll talk about your debut album, but I want to get to the music, especially for people who haven't heard you play. So you are alone today, often on Unplugged. You'd have a number of artists accompanying the musician, but you are going to be playing on your own. So you've got what, an electric guitar with you?
I have an electric guitar, and this is my first time ever playing alone, my own music, so please be merciful with your listening.
702 Unplugged. Don't miss a beat.
That was incredible. That was absolutely awesome. Let's continue our conversation. Let me share some of the SMSs and messages coming through on Facebook. Pindile says, "Oh my goodness, this is so beautiful. Transported to some place in the universe." That's how she describes it. Alan says, "A music maestro indeed." Zikona says, "Awesome. Truly enjoying this. Got my volume up." And Kaya Muatla says, "Awesome. Absolutely loving it." So this, what you just did now, performing by yourself, and tell me about what you were doing exactly.
Well, a lot of this stuff is using electronics and basically recording what I played and then playing it back to myself so that I give the impression that I'm playing with more people than I actually am.
Yes.
And it's just stuff I've been experimenting with recently. It's not really anything that I'm very much invested in yet. So this was the first trial run.
It went bloody well. So what's the jazz scene like in that part of the world? Is it very vibrant? And especially considering that you know what it's like at home, are you seeing similarities?
There's definitely a lot of similarities. There's also a lot of differences. I must mention, though, that I lived in the Netherlands for 8 years and I just recently moved back because I got a job at the University of Witwatersrand as the guitar lecturer there. So I just literally moved back at the start of this year. But I lived there for 8 years and it was a great time. Very, very inspiring. A lot of musicians, a lot of young musicians doing a lot of very interesting stuff. But you can say the same of South Africa, really. A lot of the jazz scene at the moment is being driven by very, very talented young jazz musicians.
I think that's what's exciting, in fact. Yeah, very exciting that the young ones are being lauded quite a lot, and some even on a similar level as the older generation. Let's look at your first album, your debut album, The Spectacle of an Other.
Yes.
It sounds like you're having this multi-layered conversation. You have a philosophical conversation. What are some of the issues that you wanted to interrogate?
Well, The Spectacle of Another, my first album, was really an attempt to interrogate sort of the conceptions that the global North has of the global South and to respond very critically to those conceptions. If people visit South Africa, you'll hear them saying, "I've been to Sandton before, but Sandton is not part of Africa." But of course, Sandton is part of Africa. It's just part of a type of Africa that they really can't imagine because from a very young age, they've been taught to imagine Africa in a very specific way. So the Spectacle of Another was an attempt to respond to those tendencies, to imagine Africa in very, very specific ways. And it was really, as you say, the result of my philosophical research at the time linked to my master's research. So.
I see. And questions of identity. You were born in South Africa.
I was born in Swaziland. Yeah.
And then
moved
grew
to
up
South Africa
in South
when
Africa.
I was 2 years old. When the ANC declared the state of emergency, they recalled my dad he was living in Swaziland, and they recalled him into the country. And that's how we all sort of made the move back. So from the age of 2, I've lived in South Africa. So South Africa is really my home.
Yes. But the identity conversation that you also have in that album, what is it? What are the questions and the issues?
The questions really there are trying to articulate the post-apartheid South African self. That's what all my albums try to do. So this idea that we are not the way that Europe imagines us to be, but at the same time we're not European. There are things that are uniquely South African, but we are members of a global community. We listen to Kanye West and we listen to hip-hop and trip-hop and rock. We don't just listen to traditional South African music, yet at the same time our music is inextricably linked to traditional South African musics. So it's an attempt to sort of mediate those two cultural grounds, if you want to call it that.
Right. Well, Vuma, let's have the second song in the time that's remaining. My guest this afternoon, as Carol Stewart is asking, who is this on guitar? His name is Vuma Levin. As you've just heard, he's back in South Africa, and his debut album is called The Spectacle of Another and Other. And Carol saying he is amazeballs. Love it.
702 Unplugged. Don't miss a beat.
Oh my, I hope you tuned in and you're watching this close-up of what Vuma is doing on that guitar. The close-up of his elegant fingers just weaving themselves around those strings. Carlos says, fabulous, such good use of effects. Wow, he says. And then KG says, keep up the good work. His name is Vuma Levin, back in South Africa, lecturing guitar at Wits. And no doubt you'll be seeing him at places like the Orbit. But he is home, and at least he can then build the base here in South Africa. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vuma. That was a delightful experience. Thank you.
702 Unplugged. Don't miss a beat.